Hello and welcome to another edition of Bogosity, the series where we try to get to the truth behind myths, frauds, and scams. Today's Bogosity deals with creationism, and specifically some of the myths, bogus claims, and even outright lies being told about the scientific theory of evolution. We don't have time to be anywhere near comprehensive, but one thing should become clear. When you're talking to a creationist, chances are everything he says is complete bogosity. Bogosity. Is evolution really just complete fiction? Did Darwin himself doubt it? Can you win $250,000 for proving evolution? Gee, no! These and other myths were espoused on a video uploaded to YouTube entitled Evolution versus Creation, hosted by Janet Folger. I hear she makes great coffee.
Well, if evolution is a scientific fact, then it might surprise you to hear that a scientist from Pensacola, Florida, Dr. Ken Hovind, has a standing offer of $250,000, and I quote, to anyone who can give any, and I emphasize any, empirical evidence for evolution.
Ah, yes, Dr. Kent Hovind. A scientist? Sorry, but his doctorate is a fraud. He bought it from a diploma mill. So, in order to speak with the exact same scientific authority as Hovind, I am proud to announce that I have just received my bogus doctorate for my work in applied bogosity. So from now on, if you like, you may refer to me as Bogus Dr. Killian. Now that I'm an equal authority on the subject as Bogus Dr. Hovind, let's talk about his $250,000 challenge. Obviously, he's ripping off James Randi's prize for paranormal evidence, which has been around since the 1960s. But is he as honest as Randi? Janet Folger wasn't being very honest. She failed to mention the criteria he uses for the evidence. When I use the word evolution, I am referring to the theory which believes these 5 major events took place without God. Time, space, and matter came into existence by themselves. Planets and stars formed from space dust. Matter created life by itself. Early life forms learned to reproduce themselves. Major changes occurred between these diverse life forms. The problem is, that's not what the theory of evolution says. The first 4 have nothing whatsoever to do with the theory, and the 5th is a complete mischaracterization and doesn't match the theory at all. Also, evolution doesn't say that it happened without God. It just says that it happened. Bogus Dr. Hovind is lying. He's using a straw man version of evolution that he knows no one can prove. Using his standard, you can't even prove the theory of gravity. There's something else Janet Folger didn't mention. Bogus Dr. Hovind is currently spending 10 years in federal prison on 58 counts of tax evasion and obstructing federal agents. Sounds to me like he failed to render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, as Jesus commanded.
I believe the Bible is the infallible, inspired, inerrant word of the living God.
Hey, Hovind, if you're going to claim the Bible is literal, you can't pick and choose which parts you want to follow. Not only that, but Bogus Dr. Hovind has repeatedly said that none of his videos or the videos produced by his ministry are copyrighted.
At our ministry, we produce a lot of videotapes. We've made over 1 million videos now in 6 languages. They're not copyrighted. We encourage you to get our stuff and spread it around.
His ministry has, nonetheless, acted to take down videos debunking his absolute nonsense, claiming copyright infringement.
They're not copyrighted, not copyrighted, not copyrighted.
Not only is this another lie, it's also a felony to falsely claim copyright infringement. It's just another desperate ploy by the lying criminal Kent Hovind and his lying criminal associates. We're just not dealing with honest people here. Even other creationists, such as Ken Ham, have called his claims fraudulent. How bogus do you have to be when other creationists are calling you out on it? The video goes on to make a lot of other claims.
Evolution doesn't even qualify to be a theory, despite the fact that it's the term most commonly used for it. No, in reality, it's not a theory at all. It's a model.
Hello? That's what a theory is. A theory is a model. There's a theory of gravity, which is a model explaining how gravity works. There's a theory of our solar system, which describes how our planets and other bodies move around it. So, creationist coffee lady, how is it not a theory?
Scientific theories have to be observed, tested, and results repeated. But evolution has never been observed. No one was there when life first appeared on this planet.
You know, being a bogus doctor has its advantages, like having the experience to use equipment like this state-of-the-art bogometer to measure levels of bogosity. This video, for example, emits levels of bogosity equivalent to that produced by Congress in a period of 3 days. That's a lot of bogosity. Even that last clip had unusually high bogosity levels. Why? Because evolution doesn't have anything at all to do with how life first appeared. Evolution only deals with the development of life after it first formed. These people don't even know what the theory of evolution actually is, and yet they claim to tell you what it's all about. And evolution has been observed and continues to be observed, both in the wild and in the lab. And evolution is not only testable, its predictions have been extremely useful. Evolution has been used extensively in the development of life-saving medicines and is currently being used to treat AIDS. Evolution is also used to combat cholera in the Third World. By cleaning up the water supply, the cholera is forced to mutate and evolve from a waterborne pathogen to an airborne pathogen. And airborne pathogens require the human host to be healthy and walking around so that they can be spread to other hosts. The people still have the cholera, but it's no longer a problem. None of this would have been possible if evolution were not true. But despite all of that, some people still think it's relevant to try and use Darwin himself to discredit evolution.
You see, the problem is Darwin's ideas were merely that, ideas, not facts. And what most people don't know is that Darwin himself expressed doubts about his own ideas.
Firstly, why, if species have descended from other species by insensibly fine gradations, do we not everywhere see innumerable transitional forms? Why then is not every geological formation and every stratum full of such intermediate links? Geology assuredly does not reveal any such finely graduated organic chain, and this, perhaps, is the most obvious and gravest objection which can be urged against my theory.
Yep, they pegged the bogometer. This is a particularly despicable form of lying called quote mining, because they didn't tell you what Darwin had to say next. The explanation lies, as I believe, in the extreme imperfection of the geological record. Quote mining is complete dishonesty, yet creationists do it all the time, not just with Darwin, but with other scientists, misrepresenting their views to make it seem like they doubt evolution when really they don't. Hey, isn't there something in the Bible about not bearing false witness? In fact, isn't that one of the Big Ten? Darwin knew that fossilization was a rare occurrence, and so it should be no surprise that all that remains of previous species is just a scant percentage of how many were really around. And you can't make conclusions about fossils you didn't find, only fossils you did. In fact, we now have examples of numerous transitional fossils, going from fish to mammals and birds, going through amphibians and reptiles, and there are also many transitions within mammals, including bats, rodents, elephants, and whales. Turns out, there are transitional fossils all over the place.
No intermediate fossils have ever been found.
Bogus!
There's not even a single example of an intermediate fish.
Well, unless you count Cladocellaceae, Tristichius, Titanocanthus, Paleospinax, Spathobatus, Protospinax, Acanthodians, Paleoniscoids, Canobius, Leptolepis, Paleoniscoids. Slow down, it's hard to talk this fast. Osteolepis, Elpistostega, Acanthostega, Aduella, Parasimionatus, and Ichthyostega. To name a few. The creationist objection to these is that they're not transitionals, but complete species. Well, of course they're complete species. What did you expect? In a sense, every species is a transitional, at least potentially, because they all come between what went on before with their ancestors and what will come later with their descendants. But creationists are determined to deny this tooth and nail. Here's former child star and complete idiot Kirk Cameron demonstrating what creationists think transitionals should be.
Because this is what evolutionists have been searching for hundreds of years. All right? And if you find one of these, you could become rich and famous. So here's some transitional forms. This is called the crocodile.
Bogus.
This is the bullfrog.
Stupid.
Or, of course, the sheepdog.
Transitionals don't work that way. No, you don't have a half crocodile, half duck. And if you did have one, that would debunk evolution. There is absolutely no mechanism whatsoever in evolution for a species crossing over from one lineage to another. The traits that crocodiles and ducks have in common are the traits that their common ancestors had, and nothing more. Once again, the creationists don't know what they're talking about, and yet they pretend to teach you all about it. We secretly replaced real science with Folger's creationism. Let's see what happens.
The truth is, there are no examples of evolution in the fossil record. No intermediate transitional species. Out of the millions of fossils found in more than 150 years, the only thing we see are complete species.
Another way the creationists avoid the whole transitional issue is harping on and on about the missing link and how it's never been found. This is enough to send our bogometers into spasms. First of all, there are many examples of transitionals from apes to humans. What the creationists do is make a big deal out of the gaps that are left. But that's dishonesty. That means that when you find one missing link, the creationists can just point to two more. Another problem is that they just focus on the fossil record, which is sparse because, as I said, fossilization is a very rare occurrence. But we also have an extensive genetic record, and the more we learn, the more we find that there just aren't that many differences between humans and apes. You don't really need much of a transition from one to the other. You're probably getting the idea. Creationists don't know their biology. Even basic science debunks their nonsense. When people started to see through their lies and misinformation, and they started losing their battles, both with the public and in the courts, they expanded to include other sciences. One of their new favorite things to lie about is the Big Bang.
British physicist Stephen Hawking stated the obvious conclusion that we'd all have to concede if we're honest.
So long as the universe had a beginning, we could suppose it had a creator.
Exactly.
Exactly. Wrong! This is more quote mining. Here's what he went on to say.
So long as the universe had a beginning, we could suppose it had a creator. But if the universe is completely self-contained, having no boundary or edge, it would neither be created nor destroyed. It would simply be. What place, then, for a creator?
Another violation of the 9th commandment? Ooh, that's not good. But apparently the creationists have little else.
The whole Big Bang idea really is, first there was nothing, and then it exploded.
Think about it. Have you ever heard of an explosion that has produced order? Do you understand what I'm asking you? The question is, can a bomb from a terrorist form a Rolex watch from the various materials available in the area when it explodes? Of course not. It's absurd to even consider.
Right, it is absurd. And that means the Big Bang Theory would be in trouble if the Big Bang in any way resembled a terrorist bomb and the universe in any way resembled a Rolex watch. Fortunately, it doesn't. Dr. Phil Plait, who is not a bogus doctor, is an astronomer who spends a lot of his spare time debunking complete nonsense like this.
The Big Bang is probably has one of the greatest misconceptions, and most people don't understand the Big Bang at all. It still has this misconception that the universe was an explosion of stuff that started in a place and is expanding outward. And that turns out not to be true. It's not an explosion in space. It's actually an explosion of space. The universe itself, space and time, were created at that moment. What happened before time was created? Well, I think it was Stephen Hawking who said, well, what's north of the North Pole? You know, the question itself doesn't make sense. Time was created in the Big Bang.
So if space and time were both created in the Big Bang, then there was no before the Big Bang. So you can't even say there was nothing before the Big Bang because there wasn't any space or time for the nothing to not exist in. Or something like that.
The Big Bang is complicated. It is. There's no easy way to describe this. And the problem is there are going to be people out there who are going to try to twist this information. They're going to try to make it conform to what they want it to say. And that's certainly what a lot of the creationists are doing. And they have all manners of way of doing this. Oh, the speed of light was infinite and when the universe was created, and it's been slowing ever since. And the constants in the universe have been changing and all this stuff. And it turns out that none of these claims is true.
Back at the creation versus evolution video, there's even more misinformation.
If the sun, planets, and moons evolved from the same material, they should have many similarities. Yet each planet is unique. Since about 98% of the sun is hydrogen or helium, Earth, Mars, Venus, and Mercury should have similar compositions.
No, they shouldn't. They aren't massive enough for those lighter elements to be held down without bonding to form a larger molecule, like hydrogen bonding with oxygen to make water. Initially, the larger planets did have a large gaseous atmosphere of hydrogen or helium, but these were blown away by the solar winds. Jupiter, Saturn, and the other outer planets are made up of mostly hydrogen and helium. And they were far enough away that the solar winds were too weak, so they kept their atmosphere and remained massive enough to hold the lighter elements down. But Earth was just too close and lost too much mass. So hydrogen and helium will actually drift away from our planet. In fact, the helium for balloons has to be extracted from underground sources and wasn't even found until 1903. But once they found it, they discovered that helium, extremely rare in our atmosphere, is very plentiful underground. Once again, the creationists are making claims that are easily debunked by even basic science. Down boy.
If the solar system evolved, all planets should spin in the same direction. But Pluto and Venus rotate backwards, while Uranus is tipped on its side and rotates like a wheel.
Again, any basic astronomy course will tell you why. Pluto technically isn't even a planet. It's a Kuiper Belt object and formed along with them. Uranus and Venus, like all planets, both collided with a lot of the flying debris that cluttered up the early solar system. In fact, Earth's 24-hour rotation, as well as its moon, were both formed when a large Mars-sized object collided with the very early Earth, back when the planet was still molten. And notice that although Venus spins the opposite way, it spins very slowly the opposite way. It actually circles the sun in less time than it spins on its axis. The day on Venus is actually longer than a year. This effect accounts for all of the radically different rotational periods of the planet. Oh, and by the way, none of this has anything to do with the Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang was long over. Almost 10 billion years had passed before the solar system formed.
They're confusing the Big Bang, which is the creation of the universe, with the formation of the solar system. And this is something that we actually try to teach elementary school students. It's actually a national standard. And so the universe and the solar system are two different things, and what the difference is between that and the galaxy. So there's your level of research that's done by the creationists.
As we try to build a mathematical model that reflects what we know, we quickly discover there are thousands of parameters and ratios that if you adjust them even a little bit, life is impossible.
But there was an argument that I had a hard time with, and it's called fine-tuning. It does seem like the universe has been fine-tuned to create life on Earth. For us to be here, we need stars. We need the sun. The sun has to form the Earth. The Earth has to have the kind of atmosphere it has for us to be here the way it is today. And when you look at the basic principles of the universe that allow these things to happen, it really seems that you have to fine-tune a lot of things to get the universe to be the way it is. This is called the anthropic coincidence. A man named Vic Stenger looked at 100 different universes. He created 100 different universes in the computer with different ratios of these forces and found that, in fact, not only could stars form, but they could live for billions of years. And they say that if you change these forces a little bit, stars wouldn't last long enough, and so you wouldn't be able to create life. In fact, that's not true. You can fiddle with these forces quite a bit, and you can still get life to form. And so to actually say that these forces have to be in such balance for us to be here isn't true.
Man, I knew I should have gotten one of those BOG 5000s. These cheaper models just can't take. Oh, yes, well, the video goes on and on and on and on with one bogus claim after another. We've debunked the best of them. Yes, that's right, the best. All of the rest of their claims are even more lame than these.
It is Bible-believing creationists who gave us science as we know it today.
What's wrong with the... It's never done that before. Ah!
Why do I do this? Why do I fight creationists? And I thought, you know why? Because their God is too small. 6,000 years? Are you kidding me? So the creationists who come to me and they say, you just don't appreciate the glory of God. And I say, what you don't know is that the universe is bigger, it's cooler, it's more interesting, it's more beautiful, it's more profound, it's more awesome, and it's more worthy of study. And yes, it is older than anything that you guys have been willing to accept.
Right on, Phil. But since this is about evolution, why don't we let Darwin have the last word? It is interesting to contemplate a tangled bank, clothed with many plants of many kinds, with birds singing on the bushes, with various insects flitting about, and with worms crawling through the damp earth, and to reflect that these elaborately constructed forms, so different from each other and dependent on each other in so complex a manner, have all been produced by laws acting around us. There is grandeur in this view of life, with its several powers, having been originally breathed by the Creator into a few forms or into one, and that, whilst this planet has gone circling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved.